This is Don Wetterauer, and I'm reading Chapter 14. When my alarm went off a few hours later, I was in bad shape. I got up, took aspirin, stood under a hot shower a long time. I wanted to eat, but I felt like my stomach was lodged in my throat. I finally toasted a bagel and ate it in tiny bites, dry. As painful as my body was, my heart was worse. I was sitting on the edge of the bed with my head in my hands when Barney called. "Are you all right, Ricos?" "I have a hangover from hell." "I thought you might." "How would you know?" "Oh, a few people mentioned that you closed La Kiva." "Already?" "Already. Are you coming in?" "Yeah, I'll be there in a few minutes." "The sheriff called to tell you the bail hearing will be this afternoon at 3 instead of whatever you thought." "Something about the judge's schedule." "He wants to meet with you and the witnesses half an hour before you see the judge. I rescheduled the families for you. You're damn lucky the sheriff won't be seeing you this morning." "That's the truth." "What's with you, Ricos? Are you trying to self-destruct?" "I just had a little too much to drink." "I'm worried about you. Sheriff Ben is bound to hear about it sooner or later." "I'm going to quit drinking." He had the decency not to tell me he'd heard that before. I finished getting ready for work, thinking that somehow I had to get it together. When I got to the office, Barney got me a cup of coffee, thinking it might help, and I drank, thinking it would. My partner wanted to update me about the murder investigation. I had the rape witnesses on my mind, and the meeting with the sheriff, and felt guilty for not being interested in finding the murderer. "Norma's friends turned out to be a dead end," he said. "They didn't seem close to her. No surprise there, I guess." I thought being close to Norma would be like keeping a scorpion as a pet. They told me in separate interviews that they only saw her briefly when they dropped their children off at each other's houses. Neither hung out with her or knew her well. She told them Stephanie Ricos was stealing money that was meant to be used by Doctores Frontierosos, and that there was no doubt they had proof. I groaned. One of Norma's friends said that she was a hard person to know. "Yeah," I said, "that about sums it up, if you don't want to use a lot of 4- and 5-letter words." Barney went off to interview Libby Thomas, Spanner's girlfriend, and I went into my office to finish my notes about the murder. Marion Williams, mother of my friend Austin, called to tell me about the upcoming operation. He was scheduled for surgery to repair a damaged valve in his heart, to be done by a specialist he had seen for all of his life. She gave me the details and said Austin wanted me to go with them, which I already knew. The surgery was 2 weeks away. The surgeon felt confident that all would go well because Austin was in vigorous health, with the exception of his heart, which he promised to repair as good as new. Austin is about an inch taller than me, compact and sturdy as a javelina, and although he has the typical features of a person with Down syndrome, he's handsome in his own way. He has clear green eyes that reflect the goodness and happiness in his soul, and blonde hair as silky and fine as a baby's. Many with Down syndrome have poor muscle tone, but Austin is an exception. He's muscular and strong because he's been active in sports since he was young. "I'll go with you," I assured Austin when his mother put him on the phone. "In your uniform," he insisted. Austin believes my uniform holds magical powers. At times, I believe it too. I put it on and go from a normal, sometimes lazy and irresponsible woman to a serious officer of the law, so responsible and mature I barely recognize myself. It's like Batman putting on a cape and mask, or Superman changing into the S uniform. One minute you're one thing, and the next you're larger than life, expected to leap tall buildings in a single bound, or save whole cities from powers of evil, or maybe only stand close by a friend during heart surgery. "With my uniform, if you insist," I said, even though lately the magical powers of the uniform were failing me. I didn't feel like a superhero. I stood at the window of my office staring at the Chisos Mountains to the south. I needed to go there and walk, rest my head against them, and feel the warmth of the sun stored in the stone. The thought of being in the mountains helped me believe I could give up drinking and maybe even the bloody clothes and self-pity. I had to do it. Somehow, I had to find the way back to being me. As if on cue, my cell phone rang and Sheriff Duncan said, "Deputy Ricos, I'm headed south. You head north and we'll meet at the picnic area." "Right now?" "Right now. I'm nearly there, so step on it." "You're talking about the picnic area at Elephant Mountain?" "That's the one." "I'll be there right away, sir." This was probably the end of my job. What would I do now? As I picked up speed, I called Barney to tell him I was on my way to meet the sheriff, but he already knew it. I thought that was a bad sign. When I pulled into the roadside park, the sheriff was sitting on top of one of the cement picnic tables, looking at the mountain. It made my heart lurch to see him, and I dreaded what he was about to say. "Good morning, Deputy Ricos." He patted the space next to him. "Have a seat." "Good morning, Sheriff." I sat and looked up at the mountain, already becoming hazy in the late summer sunshine. A cool breeze still stirred, but the air was warming steadily, typical of mid-September. "I'm going to come right to the point," he said. "I expect you and my other deputies to uphold the law and keep the peace. I expect you to be an exemplary citizen, not just when you wear your uniform, but all the time. We had this conversation when I began training you, but perhaps you've forgotten." "I haven't forgotten, sir." "Well, you're acting like you have, and that's the same thing." He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I want you to pay close attention because I am not going to have a conversation like this again. You can straighten up or we will no longer be working together. It's come to this. You may not stay out all night drinking in a bar and come to work looking like you do today. If you'd done it once or twice, I wouldn't be concerned. But that's not the case, is it?" "No, sir." "I don't know what you're thinking." "I don't either, sir. It won't happen again." "It had better not. I won't tolerate it. You're supposed to set a good example for others, not a bad one." "Yes, sir." "I want you to stop hanging out in bars. Am I clear?" "Yes, sir." "On a personal level, my heart hurts for you. I thank God I haven't experienced losing someone I loved so much. But he's gone, Margarita, and destroying yourself isn't going to bring him back. Ask yourself, would he be proud of you now?" "No. He would be ashamed of me. He'd be shocked." "For reasons no one can say, Kevin was taken from us, but you're still here. It seems to me like you should try to make something of your life. You have everything going for you. I think it's an insult to God to throw it all away." "I don't believe in God anymore, Sheriff." "Well, I think God still believes in you, and whether you believe or not, I think you need to spend some time on your knees. Pray to the air, or the mountains, or to something you believe in. I believe God isn't all of it anyway." I nodded but didn't speak. "I know you don't want any advice from an old man, but I can't keep myself from giving you some. If your life has lost its meaning, try helping someone else. Get involved in something good. And let Kevin go. He loved you very much, and I believe you should honor that. Barney says you have the clothes he died in. Get rid of them, Margarita. Believing that a blood stain is Kevin is like believing that a drop of water is the sea. You're kidding yourself, and you're too smart for that." Everywhere I go, everything I do reminds me of him." "Of course it does. I'm not saying to forget him. I'm only saying you have to move on, for your own sake. Grieve for him, but let him go. Cry, scream, and roll on the ground. But then get up and look around you and see if you don't want to stay with the living. I know you don't want to live a kind of half-life like some of those people you deal with on a daily basis." "No, I don't." "I need you as a deputy in southern part of the county. You and Barney are a reflection of my office. No matter what I think about you personally, professionally, I can't tolerate the way you've been acting. If you could step back and look at yourself, you wouldn't tolerate it either. No, sir. You might try seeing this woman. He handed me a card that had the name of a psychiatrist, Dr. J. Estrada in Alpine. She can help you sort things out if you have trouble doing it alone. She's good at what she does, and I highly recommend her. She works with law enforcement all the time and understands what we do. I put the card in my pocket. I'm impressed with the prompt, intelligent way you handled the rape case, and I appreciate it. But this morning, you don't look like my super sharp deputy. You look worn out at age 25, and I can't bear it. I am sorry, Sheriff Ben. I promise things are going to change. He studied me the way he would a suspect, but finally said, "Don't you have a murder to solve and an important hearing this afternoon?" "Yes, sir." "You'd better get with it then." He stood and brushed off his uniform pants. I thought he was the finest example of a sheriff anyone would ever be. I stood up and brushed off my pants. "Thank you for giving me another chance, Sheriff." "Don't disappoint me," he said. "I'm old and I can't take it." "You're not old. Your eyes are out of focus, my dear," he said. He slapped me gently on the back, then hugged me tightly. When he released me, he smiled. "Don't you ever tell a soul I'm a sheriff that would hug a deputy." "No, sir, I won't." I drove back towards Terlingua. When I got to the steep hill that we consider the halfway point between North Brewster County and South, I took note of the long stretch of highway in front of me. My head was killing me, my eyes burned, my muscles ached, and my heart hurt like hell. But I was sure I was going to get better.